Hey, welcome back for week 3. Thank you for taking time out of your week to be a part of this journey with us, to discover your gifts, your passions, and your story, and what God desires to do through you in our community. Tonight, Rusty's going to be leading us through a conversation about our passions. What is it that breaks our heart in our communities, and what is it that God is drawing us to? So I encourage you to listen well, have a great conversation. Here we go.
So we are in the process of triangulating 3 signals to make sure that we find our place in our masterpiece mission. And to do this, we need to understand our gifts, our passions, and our story. And each of these elements helps in the discovery process, but it's that second signal that's probably the most powerful one for most people, our passion. So here's the question for us today. What are you passionate about? I remember when I was in seminary years ago at Asbury Theological Seminary, I'm working on my Master of Divinity. I had a couple of classes with a gentleman from India, and he was there working on a missions degree that would equip him to go back to India and plant churches. And this guy was passionate. He was very vocal. It would upset him when in the class the professor wouldn't make connections from the biblical text directly to the real needs of people like the poor, the hungry, and the outcast. And oftentimes he would start an argument with the professor that would completely derail the class. And I remember in one class he was arguing so furiously with the professor that he stood up, said one last thing to the professor, grabbed his books, and then stomped out of class. Well, I found out later that he apologized to the professor, and then we saw him back in class that next week. But I had a chance to talk with him at one point, and our conversation revolved around his hometown in India and the extreme poverty that he and his family had grown up in. And you could tell he just loved the people there. He wanted to go back, bring the gospel to life for them, and do whatever he could to help people get educated, get food, clean water, and of course find hope in Christ Jesus. And he believed the local church was the hope of the world and the hope for this community, and that's why he wanted to plant a church there. This guy was so passionate he was willing to fight for it. And I was so impressed because he knew exactly what he was doing with his mission, and I was still trying to figure mine out. I think there are a lot of battles that we fight on a regular basis that consume a lot of energy and time and attention that really have no great value in the kingdom. Arguments with people about things of no great consequence, or complaining about issues that really don't matter. And when we aren't tapped into the real battle, the battle that matters, we tend to fight battles over things that don't matter. And we end up fighting the wrong enemies. You see, I think that we all long for something worth fighting for. And we were created by God to fight for the good, to seek out justice in this world. And you and I were made to slay the giants, like David in the Bible. God calls us to step into the battle. Now, how do you know which battle to fight? How do you determine which enemy you are being called to engage? Well, it's our passions that show us what battle we need to fight. And in our masterpiece mission, we discover our passions show us who and what we are made to fight for. For David, when he saw those troops of Israel paralyzed in fear, it triggered something in him. It triggered his passion. In 1 Samuel 17:26, he says this, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine, takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should taunt the armies of the living God?" David sees the battle and is ready to fight. Now, he could have chosen his own plans or spend time working on his own life goals and just avoid this altogether. He could have said, I got a full schedule. I got my hands full already caring for my father and his portfolio of sheep. Not been trained or equipped for this scenario. Maybe I could just make a small donation towards a fund that would provide for the soldiers, or give a little time or something. But David didn't do that. Instead, he embraced the challenge, and trusting God, he said to that Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted." So it was when the Philistine rose and came and drew near to meet David that David ran quickly toward the battle to meet the Philistine. Notice that David ran toward the battle. He saw a problem, he sensed the injustice, and something within him just rose up to fight it. David looked at Goliath, his passions awakened, and he said, "That's all I can stand. I can't stand it anymore." And you know, that really begs the question for all of us, what is our passion? You know, what is the name of our Goliath? Who do we want to fight for? What battle are we running toward? Where do we sense a problem, an injustice, a wrong that needs to be righted? And you know, this is really important. It's worth taking some time to really look into our heart, to ask ourselves who, what, and where we are willing to fight. What are the issues that awaken the passion in our heart? The reason the answer to this question is so important is that in your awakened set of passions is an invitation from the living God to join Him on mission. It's helpful to break down the question of passion really into three different areas: your people passion, your cause passion, and your influence passion. And as we discover and explore these aspects of passion, we're able to learn the name of our Goliath and how to recognize which battle we are called to run toward. So now I'll turn it over to your group leader as you begin a conversation about the passions God has given you and how to use them in your masterpiece mission.